My wife 33F of 11 years and I 34M lost our first and only 6-week-old baby daughter a few months ago on top of other major family deaths in 2015. On New Year's Day I discover her possibly later emotional affair. Happy New Year. Warning, this shit is long as duck. Sorry. 2015 was a shit year for us both. 2016 ain't looking any better. Some background on 2015. A few months ago our first and only baby daughter passed away suddenly at 6-week-old. And that wasn't even the only death in our family for 2015. She lost her mother and grandmother. I lost my grandmother before the pregnancy and then my grandfather shortly after our daughter passed. Keep in mind, I have yet to confront her on this and I am not sure that I ever will. I am not sure where to start with this. I guess the point I discovered the affair. It was early mid. We stayed in, drank and smoked our shitty year away and welcomed in the new one. We had amazing nid sex too. At one point she passed out next to me with her phone unlocked in her hand. All I had to do was just look over and there it was. Kik Messenger was open and I could clearly read it without getting up or going closer. They were affectionately saying goodnight and Happy New Year's. Winky faces. Hearts. Kisses. I recognized the name. An old friend she grew up with. I stewed on it for about an hour. Poured myself another drink. We know each other's passwords. Up until this point I thought we never had anything to hide. Finally it got the best of me and I decided to take a closer look. I find an extensive amount of chats over the last week. They set up call times for when I was at work. He was hiding this from his girl too. They said I love you a few times. They warned each other when they had to go dark. They apparently gave their partners nicknames. Roommate. The roommate is home tonight, I might be quiet. They texted all day, all night. And whenever she was out away from me. This is a close friend of hers and I understand that. They can pick up and leave off in life without missing a beat. They get each other. I have a friend like that too. But not of the opposite sex. Things started making sense. She had been very distant from me the last few months. Always on her phone even when right next to me. Even when we were out together. She had been avoiding conversations with me. Serious ones I wanted to have. About our grief and our libation abuse. I felt like there was more to this. I couldn't shake the feeling. It just got bigger and louder. I dug deeper. I used data recovery software to look for deleted stuff. I braced myself for what I might find and asked myself, do you really want to know? Yes. It's too late now. It went back for 3 months. 3 months of roommate. Sweet good mornings and good nights. A few I love yous. Secret dates. Secret calls. Lies to me. Lies to his girl. Suspicion from his girl and me. Secret bathroom selfies from times we went out. Playlists of songs that reminds them of each other. I also saw her being comforted. Reassured. Her comforting him. Him being concerned like me about her libation abuse. I noticed sexual hinting usually came when drinks were involved. Which usually came at night when I was work. I also noticed the regret she sometimes has the next day for the inappropriateness of the last night. I found hints of previous times they may have picked up and dropped the relationship. But I don't know when or how long. I went through all of it. Over and over, all while she was still asleep. I'd go outside to cry and wonder where I went wrong. I got madder and sadder and drunker. Meanwhile it's like 5 a.m. now. I start having what I thought was a panic attack. Cold sweats. Clammy hands. Increased heart rate. Shortness of breath. I never had one before so it was new to me. I've been through some shit in my life. Effed up family deaths. Suicides of close friends. Physical abuse as a teen. Deployments to far-off lands that usually include local bad guys trying to kill you via mortars, rockets, and snipers. But nothing has ducked me up more than losing our first child so early combined with finding this affair. At least I had a few months of grieving before the next ass-kicking. Finally and thankfully I hit up my true best friend. Told him about all of it. I knew I could count on him to keep me from doing something stupid like waking her up and drunkenly argue about this. My boy calms me down. He reassures me that she loves me. But she's just lost and lonely. He's right. I work all night and sleep all day. She hasn't worked since before the pregnancy. I took about a month off after our daughter passed and even that was hard. She has been trying. Applying for jobs. Doing errands in town. Visiting friends and family outside of the house. I am just there. Working. College. Sleeping. Drinking. Smoking. Depressed. No fun. Not happy. He reality checks me. You just had to look. Now what? Think about what will happen if you tell her. You can see how fragile you are right now. Imagine her head right now. He was right too. I couldn't bring it up yet. At least not now. He also recommended to at least lay off the booze for a bit too. I agreed. So I decide to hold and keep monitoring the situation. It's about 7 a.m. now. Probably should try to sleep. I slept 3 hours and woke up in a cold sweat. Then for the next 50 hours I was awake. On the border of more panic attacks. My wife, oddly enough, or not, had things to do on her own during those days. She was gone during the day. Which left me to do more reading and rereading. I was looking for clues of why she would rather turn to him and not me. It just hurt more and more to read it again and again. I was on the phone a lot with my boy. He really kept me sane and somewhat rational. When the wife was around, it was hard to look her in the eyes without wanting to say it. In my head I am screaming why. She could tell too. Kept asking me if things were okay. But soon she was back to her phone and didn't need to care anymore. Then it happened. A big panic attack that I couldn't hide. I was trying to get some sleep. It was 6 a.m. when I got into bed. I didn't feel sleepy. I just wanted to try since I've been up for 2 days. She cuddles up next to me. It felt good to have her arms around me. The text kept trickling into my mind and I start to shake and she notices. I wanted to tell her so damn bad. Instead, I let out some other shit about our daughter and other family deaths. True feelings really. Things that needed to come out anyway. It was full on panic attack. I could barely form a sentence. I felt weak and vulnerable. We talked and cried for about 3 hours. I had to work that night. But I decided at that point to call out. I would have been a mess and there's no room for that bullshit at my work. It still felt good to get some shit out even though it wasn't the real cause. That held me over for a few days. Along with being at work and away from home. Here we are now. 2 weeks later. I still haven't told her and I still do not plan to. With some help from my boy. I've decided to try stepping up my game. I've tried to fill the last 2 weeks with my love for her. I started to do things that are reminiscent of a new BFGF relationship with her. Random loving texts. Handwritten notes in surprise places. Constant compliments. Surprise scenic drives. Explore new eateries. Take her out to places she likes to go to. Meanwhile I am still intercepting messages. A few days ago I find that she has more or less told her friend she needs to take a break. I wouldn't say she cut it off but more of an open-ended break. She also deleted the Kick app. She has been reciprocating the love too. Headway I suppose. I feel like I should be happier about the cutoff. But instead I am even more wary. I still can't help but think it's not the end of it. So many more questions now and so many more realizations about the past couple months. She has brought up the idea of an open relationship numerous times over the last year. But more so in the last 3 months. Usually it's over some beers or smoke. But we've had casual what if conversations about it. Honestly I am not that opposed to the idea. But that was before I knew this. And yet it makes more sense now that she was thinking about it then. I am her first and only. I've sowed my wild oats. She hasn't. I've been looking up on Reddit and elsewhere literature on what makes a good open marriage. Reading accounts of emotional affairs from both sides. Why men and women cheat. The difference of a good relationship to men and women. Lots of marriage and infidelity stuff. I want to be everything she needs because she is everything I need and want. I fear that I only meet the needs and not the wants. That I am just merely stability when she really wants excitement. Deep down I am creative. Compassionate. Caring. And loving but also logical and analytical. She met me as a bad boy. Rough around the edges. Free-spirited. Now after 11 years she has successfully domesticated me. But now she wants a bad boy. Again and I am not that anymore. I am calloused and hardened by this shit we call life and I don't like it. Thanks for listening Reddit. Updates. Thank you guys for all the responses and PMs. I have a what if I told you letter I've been venting too. It's turning into more of an actual how I am going to tell her letter. We have been seeing a therapist for our grief since almost day one of our child passing. Divorce is not an option that's going to come from me. It will have to be her. So, wow. I did not expect this much attention from Reddit at all. Your comments have been both entertaining and insightful. I cannot hold this in. I will tell her soon. Thank you all. Seriously. Thank you. Too long didn't read 2015. A year full of heartbreaking family deaths on both sides, and most devastatingly the sudden death of our 6-week-old daughter, who was our first and only child. New Year's Eve going into 2016, I find my wife is having an emotional affair and doing a shitty job of hiding it, probably because we've been drunk for 4 months. There is evidence of previous relations with the same guy too. But not enough info to know how often over the years. I haven't told her that I know about it. And not sure if I am ever going to. We are both very fragile still. Talks of open marriage keep coming up to top it off. Do I confront her? Do I hold this in and let the pain slowly tap her off? Do we open the marriage up? Do I let her go and hope she comes back? I am just needing to vent this out. PMs are welcome too. Update. Link. Wow. Okay. Where to start? So first off, trying to put myself in your shoes? My guess at the reason you're having the panic attacks is because you're allowing what she's doing to be something done to you. Like you have no control over it. You do, and while if you've been failing to hold up your end of the relationship, that's something that you need to step up and do as well. You need to take control of this problem and make a plan. Your wife is emotionally cheating on you. This sub being what it is, she's going to get lambasted pretty hard here. But leaving her isn't the only way. There's a middle ground between that and what you're currently doing. Which is nothing. So, before you do anything else, lay off the booze. Eat a decent healthy meal. Take a couple of multivitamins. And get a good night's sleep. You'll want your head to be as clear as possible. Then it's time to talk to your wife. Hey, we need to talk. I haven't been completely honest with you over the past couple of weeks. The emotional crumbling you've been seeing me go through isn't because of any of the recent tragedies we've gone though. I've been going back and forth on how to handle this. And wasn't sure which call to make. Honestly, I am still not entirely sure. Though I have a better idea of the direction. I've been a wreck lately. Because I know about you and name. Insert dramatic pause here. I've read all of your conversations. Everything you texted back and forth. I know about the I love yous. I know about the selfies. I know that you set up phone dates. And are very likely having phone sex with him. I know that his girlfriend wife doesn't know about this either. So before this conversation goes any further, I am going to stop and ask you if you have anything to say to me. You need to know that nothing you have done or not done justifies what she did here. If she had a problem with you or the relationship, it was her job to talk to you about it. Maybe even leave you. But not have an emotional affair. This needs to be ingrained in your head before you have that conversation. Nothing you have done or not done justifies what she did here. This is not your fault. This is her failing as a wife and decent human being. This is her betraying you and your wedding vows. It's okay to be angry about that. My guess is that during this she's going to break down crying. Resist the urge to comfort her at first. You need to hear what she has to say. If it's anything other than sincere apologies, regret, shame, guilt, etc., then there are bigger problems than you have so far. If she says something anywhere close to blaming you for this, your response verbatim is, if you had a problem with our relationship, it was your job to come talk to me about it. Instead you chose to betray me and betray your wedding vows. I may not have been perfect through a rough time. But neither have you, and I didn't choose to go out and cheat on you. So, we have some problems. Sure. But right now we're talking about your cheating. If we make it out of this conversation together, we can talk about the rest. Hopefully, you get the guilt and regret from her. It sounds like, given the circumstances, you're ready to forgive her. So I am going to continue on that assumption. If you get the correct response from her, you need to put down some firm boundaries. The first of which should be that she is done with him forever. This is a point that you absolutely cannot compromise on. Close friend or no. She ducked that up and it's done. Forever. Your requirement should be that if any further contact comes from him, she brings it to you for complete transparency and does not respond. I would also strongly recommend that you let his girl know what's been going on. If you took screenshots or saved logs, send them to her. That benefit is threefold. 1. It's the right thing to do. 2. It lets the other person who is in the same boat as you make her own decisions, which I am sure you'd appreciate if the roles were reversed. And 3. It will nuke the likelihood of him contacting your wife again. At least for a while. as he'll be scrambling to save his own relationship. Or at the very least he'll have some comeuppance. I am actually generally a fan of having your cheating spouse inform the other wronged party in these situations, as that instills anger and betrayal in the illicit relationship, helping to scorch the ground. But in this case it might be better for you to do it. You should probably let your wife know ahead of time that it's happening. And stand your ground if she begs you not to. This is what happens when people cheat. You don't let them get away with it. Other than that, you should probably have an open media policy for a bit. You should get her to verbally acknowledge that she understands that you're going to have some long-term trust issues with her, and that she needs to be as compassionate about when they come up 2 years from now as she will be next week. She broke this heart. Get her to acknowledge that she has to put the effort back in to fix it. You still have to hold up your side of things, of course. But this isn't the conversation to have that talk in. This conversation is purely about her cheating and how you'll recover. If you make it through this conversation, then sooner rather than later couples therapy should become a priority. You're both dealing with a lot and neither of you are good at communicating, or you wouldn't be in the mess. That should be your life's focus for some time going forward. Which leads to the last bit. You may not recover from this. All of the previous advice was assuming she and you react in the most optimal ways possible. If she fails at any point going through that, you need to be able and willing to walk away from this relationship. Let me say it one more time. This was not your fault. While it would be great if you could forgive, forget, and ride off into the sunset together, the most important outcome to all of this is that when you hit the end of it and look in the mirror, you respect the person staring back at you. That means taking control of the situation, deciding what you want, deciding where your lines in the sand are, and keeping true to them regardless of how much it hurts in the moment. If she doesn't react how you need her to, it sounds like you've still got a good friend who will have your back. You'll take some time, recover, and you will be able to move on and be happy with someone else. I wish you luck, man. And I am sorry for all that you've gone through recently. Wow, thank you. A lot to think about here. Thank you for writing this. It's making a lot of sense. Final update. Well, 2 months later and deeper down the rabbit hole. Firstly, thank you everybody for all of the advice you gave. I had a lot to think about in this delicate situation. It was very much appreciated to have many points of view on this. Thank you. I did finally confront her about it. I bounced a lot of wording and drafts off my close friend. Just to clarify, my friend, he didn't want me to irrationally confront her without a game plan. The confrontation went as well as expected. Lots of crying and genuine remorse on her part. I stayed firm and unemotional through most of it. Anything else was minimal on my part. I started by saying I knew about the affair, but then gave her the chance to tell me everything with the preface of us needing to be open and honest or this shit ain't gonna work. She spilled everything to me and I give her some due credit for that. Turns out I didn't even know the half of it. But I was close. It was a later. We talked for hours about it. She cried a lot. And seemed genuinely remorseful. She recognized the betrayal and hurt she caused. She said she always felt guilty about it. Wasn't enough to stop her though. She was ashamed of it. Blah 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 and so on. I made it clear there will be no more communication except for a final definitive cutoff, of which I will approve of beforehand and monitor. They ruined whatever friendship they once had with their decision to have an affair. She may have also ruined our marriage, but definitely my trust in her. Apparently this bullshit had been going on and off, whatever the duck that means, for 3 years. I had no idea. It started with texting while we were living far far away from the BF. I was working long days and nights on a special work project. A project I took on with her weigh in and vote. Because there was a good possibility it could move us to a place we both have been wanting for 6 years. Behold. Because of the hard work I provided on the project. When it was over, my employer honored my request to move us anywhere we wanted. Guess where we wanted to go? 2 ducking hours away from the BF. Allegedly the texting stopped when we moved. Of course at some point she felt neglected again. Right after we had bought our dream home in our dream place. That's when they started getting physical, because now they could meet in person. Allegedly though. It wasn't too physical, that is no sex of any kind, just kissing and groping like young teenagers. Dates and meetups were sporadic. I am not sure how long that went on for. But it was within the first year we moved. She swears she called it off with him a few months before she got pregnant with our daughter. Then we had our shit year, culminating with the discovery of the affair, and now I am here. As for the BF, I contacted that mother ducker. I called him and gave him the option to say his piece. I told him if he was man enough to engage with my wife, then Hess man enough to engage with me. Man to man. We set up a time to talk. I was rational and calm. I had some points already prepared. I also had a game of mind duckery planned too. I made up a lot of shit in order to covertly fact check my wife's stories. Think lying police detective. His story matches up. So either it's the truth or they had a pre-planned story to tell. I made him call me sir and Mr. last name. Which he did. He's only a year younger. He actually wanted to talk first too. I gave him some credit for following through with the talk. He cried. He apologized profusely. He knew it was wrong. She knew it was wrong. Sex was a line they didn't want to cross. She never said anything bad about me to him, to the point it was kinda weird for him because he couldn't hate me. We had about an hour-long talk where I laid into his shit. I asked what he thinks his girl is doing, if Hess doing this. If mine is doing this. He asked me if I was going to tell her. I didn't answer directly. I said from my experience. I would rather this had been a confession and not an investigation. Tell your girl and you will find out if you really love each other. But either way, your relationship with her is obviously ducked up and I really don't give a shit. Now I feel even more betrayed. What the duck was the point of the last couple years of hard work to get us to a better future. Hard work that I was upfront about and she signed up for. I've been questioning everything. About the last couple years. About what she says. About what I was doing. What she's doing. Is this marriage worth it? Who did I really marry? It goes on and on. We have finally opened up to our therapist. He is helping us through it, I guess. He mostly mediates our conversations. But does one-on-one too? I am not sure if any of it is worth it in the end anyway. I have my doubts about the strength of the marriage and if I will ever trust her again. I am getting a real bad case of the duckets and I might be liking it. I did start getting back into running miles a day and some weightlifting too. It helps to get the anger out. Adding additional info about my wife's behavior after confrontation. She has been more loving and affectionate towards me than I've seen in 5 years. At least every couple days she tells me she is sorry, ashamed, remorseful, and doesn't deserve me. She is acknowledging that she ducked up. Honestly, I can see it in her eyes. Too long didn't read. I confronted wife on her affair. She told me everything. Might be telling the truth. No sex, just emotional. But was on and off for the last 3 years. Mind ducked her BF for answers and fact checking until he cried. Told therapist about all of this. Started exercising some of the anger out. Also starting to not give a duck about shit and liking it. Hit like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing to our channel.